Welcome back to the channel. So, it's been Christmas recently and we've been pumping out tons of Christmas videos. But in this video, we're going to go back to our roots with Minecraft again, but we're going to be making a Christmas themed mod for Minecraft. So what I'm going to be doing in the video is completely starting from scratch and making custom mobs, structures, biomes, and different items and blocks in the game to make a completely Christmas themed mod. But what's more is this isn't going to be an entirely fresh mod. This is actually going to be an update for the mod that I'm working on that I'm going to be releasing soon to you guys on this channel. So I've been working on a mod recently called the Winter Update, which completely overhauls many of the winter and icy frozen biomes in the game to give them a little bit more love and make them more interesting. But this is going to be a Christmas update for that mod, and I'm going to add some new biomes and Christmas themed content into it in time ready for Christmas. Now the goal is to try and release this mod maybe at the end of this month or next month, which will be after Christmas, but I want you guys to see just how we actually make this mod and creating the Christmas update throughout this video. So we're going to be making new mobs, so we're going to have to make new models, textures, blocks and items for all of it, and it should be pretty fun to start from step 0 all the way to the finish. So let's get into the video and let's make this mod. So the first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Blockbench, which is my go-to choice when I actually make new mobs for my Minecraft mods. This is because personally I think it's the best Minecraft model creator, and there's a lot of customizability and options you can use, as well as a lot of cool, interesting plugins. For an example, right now I've just created a new project, and I've used the CEM loader, which is a template loader that lets you spawn a lot of the vanilla mobs, so I can use the Iron Golem as a template. And now that I've got the Iron Golem as a template, I can just go around and just do my own thing. For anyone who's guessed what the mob is already, congrats to you, but if you haven't, basically this isn't like any other Christmas mod where I'm going to start off by creating Santa Claus first, because that's usually the one thing you guess people would do. In fact, the first mob which I actually decided to create in this mod was actually Krampus. Now Krampus can be viewed as many different things, and obviously in different cultures people look at him differently and he represents different things. So in European folklore, namely German and Austrian, Krampus is basically a companion of Santa who's some kind of demonic entity. So Santa at Christmas will go and give kids presents who've behaved well, and then there's also Krampus, who's entirely the opposite, who's kind of like a demon of the holidays, who kind of just treats children who've misbehaved very badly and brings the opposite of Christmas spirit, which is kind of like a Christmas horror experience. So basically we're going to craft Krampus into Minecraft right now in Blockbench, and you can see that we've drastically changed the formation of what the Iron Golem looks like by adding a few various different features to him right now. So the first thing which I went ahead and did was I extended some of his limbs and changed the size of them to be a little more slender. I added a hood shape to him, which you can see over his head, which is going to be coloured white a little bit later. I added some horns which arch over diagonally so they have some depth to them, and I added some shoes to his feet, and I extended and changed the lower torso of the Iron Golem to be a little bit more shapely for a large hunched humanoid figure. Along with this, I added a long beard which I'm going to extend with the texture onto the face when we get to painting, and I decided to slim down the arms a little bit to make them a little bit shorter and smaller, and change the pivot points, which is where the animations for the arms and legs will perform. After this, I decided that the model was basically ready to be textured, so I decided to set up some of the template options and names of the models, and I decided to create a texture template which I could actually build off of, so we could start texturing the model of the mob and make it have some colours so it looks like the character itself. So the next stage of this, when you're on this in Blockbench, is basically just start colouring things. What I like to do is I like to just use the fill tool and fill up the whole texture with the base colour I want to use, and then after that just use the fill tool to fill any sides of blocks which I can fill in one flat color, and then paint anything small, like small details like these little gloves and mitts in white afterwards, just with the paintbrush tool. I can go a little bit closer and do more fine details, show and hide some of the shapes of the object so I can paint a little bit easier, and turn on things like symmetrical painting so the other side will respond the same when I paint on one face, and it'll just replicate it and make it a lot quicker. Then I can fill in certain areas, paint on various others, and it really just depends how much detail I want and which parts are just one flat color and which needs multiple colors. Now we're going to color the horns in a brown shade, and this is going to be a very similar shade to the face, because remember, Santa has a cream colored skin just like a human, but Krampus is kind of like an evil Santa or demonic entity. So we're going to give him some brown skin or darker skin, kind of like how some of the classical demons are portrayed, and then we're going to give him an open black mouth where there's just nothing there, so it's like a gaping gasp expression, and we're going to give him some black and red eyes to make him look quite scary. Along with this, we're just going to add a little bit of shade to the uniform itself, the costume, like a belt and a belt buckle, and some more depth to the actual shirt to make it look like some kind of Santa costume for the holidays. And we'll go around and add some touch-ups, and then he's done. So we're going to save the texture right now, and we're going to convert the project to a modded entity which supports Java. This just lets me export the Krampus model as a Java entity, as a .java model, so we can import it into mCreator, which is going to be the mod tool which I'm going to use to actually create the mod element in a few moments. So we're going to go over the hood here and some sides of the face and just touch up and fill in some colors which we've missed, and make sure that the model is ready to be imported and used in the mod. And after everything's done, we're going to make sure the tags, the file name of the model, and everything is prepared to export, and we're going to export it as a .java model. This is the process where we save the model and then we save the texture afterwards, so it's mapped to the model and ready to import into mCreator. After this, we'll go into mCreator and we'll begin the process of creating the mob. So we're going to go in and we're going to make a modded entity, and then we're going to import the Java model into mCreator and map the right Minecraft Forge animations onto each limb so the mob will move properly, and import the texture. We'll select the right texture and model in mCreator, change the bounding box a little bit so it has different collision on the model, and then we're going to change a few other aspects like the color of the mob spawn egg to red and white like Krampus, and we're going to give it a boss bar to signify that it's actually a tough mob which should be dealt with as a boss, just like the Ender Dragon. We'll add an entity label to the mob which will show above it with some information. At this point I didn't know this was the case, I thought this would just show it on the item, so we'll probably end up removing that later, but I'll show you what that looks like in game. I'll probably add some more sounds and other things to this mod behind the scenes, but just for the video purpose, this is what we've done in the moment. So it's going to be a mob which is aggressive because it's going to be hostile towards the player, and we need some of these certain characteristics and properties from mobs to be in play here with the Krampus mob, and then we're going to give it some properties which you'd expect from a hostile mob in Minecraft. So a few of these things, for an example, is we want to give the mob increased health value. This just means that the mob will be a little bit tankier when we fight him, just like a boss should be. And then at this stage we're going to finalize a few things, but first of all, before we give him some complex properties, we're going to jump into Minecraft in a moment, and we're just going to add some texturing touch-ups to the model. So I'm going to add a little bit of noise to the texture, which just changes the different colors in the texture and adds a few different close variants. So for an example, if you have a red texture, it will fill in the texture with 5 different shades of red just to give the texture some more depth and make it look better than what you actually did when you made it. So we're going to load into Minecraft, into one of the Minecraft worlds. We're going to create a new world, and we're going to spawn the mob and test what it looks like in game and how it performs. So you'll see we have a Krampus spawn egg right here which we made, and then after we're just going to spawn him, and you can see he does actually spawn with his boss health bar, so everything looks really awesome. But this little mob label over the top of him kind of just goes through him, and it doesn't look very good in game, and it's just a big line of text which is very distracting to play with. Now you'll see when I punch him he literally doesn't really have much health, but he performs exactly how we wanted him to. So at this stage the mob's working, and we can get onto some of the more complex features. So this is a pretty successful first test for the mod. And it's at this stage where we're going to add some more properties. So I'm going to give Krampus 400 health, 30 armor, and he's going to drop ice bricks for right now because I don't really have any other drop to him. And since he's a legendary entity, we'll make him immune to a few different things like drowning, and we'll add some particles around him like falling snow particles to make him look a little bit better. We're going to import the properties from the Iron Golem, and then we're going to add some basic AI to him so when players come near him he will attack them, and we're not going to spawn him in any of the biomes because later I'll probably add some kind of way to summon him. So into the second test right now, you can see the mob does actually function. He has some AI, so he actually moves and walks, which he didn't do before. So we'll just spawn some diamond armor and put it on our player, and I'm just going to show you how tough he is when we drop into survival mode because I want to see how much he actually hits. If he hits the player like a a truck or if it's just kind of like a flesh wound or a paper cut. So we're going to attack him, and you can see when he hits us, it doesn't really do much in diamond armor, okay? So he's not very powerful when you have good armor in the game, which is kind of good because this is just a fun-filled holiday mod. You don't expect Krampus to be the best boss in Minecraft, and he dies pretty quickly because this is the first version we spawned. So we'll spawn him again, and you can see the snow particles around him look really nice when he's moving especially. It makes the mob look really cool. And you can see since he has the iron golem traits, he knocks us up quite a lot when we actually have a fight with him. He's quite powerful, especially this new version, which you can see here that we're testing. We can kind of block his attacks and shield them, and then attack him. And we do quite a lot of damage, but he's very tanky, so it takes quite a long time to get him down in terms of his health. So we're just going to actually let him hit us, and at one point you can see that he knocks us up a lot, and he hits us for around half a heart each time. So he's not overpowered, but he definitely just do damage if you choose not to have a shield, or if you want to fight him with something lower than diamond. And you can see he's pretty hard when he actually defeats you, and it comes up with a note: you have been slain by a mysterious horned figure. Next up, we're going to add some more complex properties to the Krampus mob. So we're going to add some triggers through the use of procedures, and I'm going to add some random blocks here, which basically means if a random number turns out to be one of these values from 0.1 to 0.5, then a random event will happen based on each one. So for an example, it will strike lightning in a few different areas and certain other properties. Now this will happen if you hurt the entity, so all these properties are triggered when you actually punch Krampus, for an example, because in mCreator there's not really that much you can do in terms of making custom bosses and having custom attacks. So we're just going to add some of these command blocks in here to make him actually do something when you punch him and make him feel more like a boss and not just an iron golem which has a lot of health. So for an example, he can place down 4 different cobwebs or 1 piece of cobweb at certain different locations on the map. He can spawn water around him to kind of flood you and push you away from him, and do a few various other things which make him a little bit more interesting and tricky. Now one thing I wanted to do with Krampus is I wanted for him to have the ability to actually have a few different potion effects which he can apply to you when you fight him. Obviously this makes him more like a boss because bosses can add debuffs and potion effects to you. So I wanted to make him quite powerful, but I didn't want him to actually hurt the player much. I wanted him just to kind of annoy the player and hinder their movement. So I gave him things like giving you the wither effect, weakness, blindness, nausea, and slowness, for an example. And then obviously when he dies, we want something interesting to happen, right? So I added a new command block, so when he dies, we will actually get the block of snow. If there's actually the block of snow below him, then he will actually drop an item. So if you defeat him in the snow, he will actually drop an item. So we're going to make a new weapon for this, and we're going to call it the Staff of Krampus. The reason why I did this is I want to make him spawn in a custom biome, and if we actually make it so he only drops an item if you defeat him in the snow, then it adds the whole purpose of actually going to that biome or that dimension to actually defeat him and get a custom drop from him. So right now we're going through and I'm going to make the Staff of Krampus, which is a relic belonging to the mysterious Christmas entity of Krampus. And you can see we're going to make it act like a spear, how you charge the weapon, and we're going to have it have a custom snow block break sound effect, and for the texture we're going to make it shoot ice blocks. Now we don't actually have a texture for this item, so we're going to have to make one in a moment, but it's going to have just an ice block when you fire it, and it's going to have a few different properties to it to make it actually worth using. So we're going to create a new texture from a template, use a stick as the base, and we're just going to go through and kind of use a few reference images to make a staff which seems like it could belong to Krampus. I looked at a few different horror movie references of Krampus and a few different Christmas movies, art drawings, things like that. Obviously I'm not the best at pixel art when it comes to making item textures, but I decided to kind of just go freehand, use a few different similar colors, and just make some kind of legendary looking staff which you would think would belong to Santa or Krampus and kind of fit the whole Christmas style. I went through a few different variations and renditions of this to actually get the perfect outcome, and there was a few mistakes which I made and definitely a lot of lacks of symmetry, but in the end I decided that this was good enough, added some noise to make the texture a little bit more varied and better, and then we jumped into the item to add some properties to it. So when the bullet fires, it will place an ice block on the ground, for an example, and a few other things which I decided to make it more interesting. Obviously when we right click on the item and fire the projectile, we want it to actually do something because it's supposed to actually be a legendary weapon or a legendary staff, not just something which you poke pigs with. So we wanted to make this a little bit more interesting by adding a few different things to it. So for an example, if it hits the ground, it will replace that block with snow, or if you fire it, it will land an ice block on top of it. So another thing which I wanted to do is when you attack with this weapon, add the same potion effects which Krampus adds to you when you fight him. So I added all these potion effects where if you attack a player or a mob, it will give them different potion effects. So if you attack a player, it will kind of give them more annoying effects like slowness and nausea, but if you attack a mob, it will damage them and give them things like wither to make it a little bit more dangerous. And after this, the next thing to do was to replace the item drop which Krampus could drop with the item that we just created, the Staff of Krampus, because I added a placeholder item of some other sword in the mod in there. So we're going to make him drop the Krampus staff, and then we're going to jump into the test environment to test the mod again to see how the staff operates and see how Krampus actually performs as an enemy again. So we're going to go into creative mode, just into the menus, so we can spawn our brand new item, which is the staff which we've just crafted. So you can see it's a shiny enchanted staff. This is the sword of the golem, okay? This is a different sword weapon which I created, and it has very similar special effects to what the staff has. I basically just use this as a base item to create the staff, but that's the sword which I actually used before. So now I want to actually test out the staff itself that we've just made and just see how powerful it is, because I don't like to create overpowered items, but I want to make it useful. So this relic belonging to Krampus does a few little things. So let's just spawn some sheep, and unfortunately we're going to have to punish these sheep. I know it's pretty evil. We didn't set out to do something like this, but it's the only way we can test the mob. So you can see it fires them and knocks them back. It drops snow blocks. It applies the wither to the sheep, and it kind of shoots like an arrow, but it shoots snowballs, although it's so fast you can't really see the snowballs, which is kind of a good thing. And it's just really powerful in general. Now this isn't overpowered versus a boss, but if you just use it to slay mobs like pigs and cows, then yeah, you're pretty much going to one-shot them because it's kind of overpowered. But you can see it's pretty good. It's a pretty good weapon. You'd probably find it useful as a drop, and that's all we really set out to achieve. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed me making this Christmas mod, then make sure to subscribe if you're new and like the video, and turn on notifications for more awesome Minecraft videos. I'm actually going to be bringing a video next week, probably, or the week after, where I make your Minecraft mods. So if you want me to make your mod ideas, then drop a comment below in this video and tell me what your ideas are for new mobs and creatures to be added to the game, and maybe I'll feature your idea in the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.